is a dress rehearsal for a life that is yours to lead.
Masisondele, phila noxolo yelele.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to School Matters with me, Sumaya. Alhamdulillah, this evening we have a good lineup, a topic which everybody talks about, a topic which, when you think about it, it's in every angle you can look at it. June 16th, when you think about June 16, what do you think about? Do you think about the apartheid? Do you think about those who lost their lives? Do you think about your current situation? Do you think about has there been change, or things are just the same? Nothing has, been done. So our guest in studio doesn't need much of an introduction. We have Mr. Narend Ganesh. Welcome to School Matters.
Thank you, Sumaya, and good evening to the listeners.
Today, the topic which we have is so powerful. When you think about, we reflect on a powerful moment in our country's history. June 16th, 1976, almost, what is it, 50 years?
Yes.
Say 50 years. When the youth of South Africa stood up against injustice in education during the Soweto uprising. Their courage, sacrifice, and resilience helped shape the democratic education system we have today. But as we remember their struggles, we also ask important questions. What does their legacy mean for education in South Africa today? Are we truly honoring their sacrifices in our classrooms, homes, and communities? So today in our program, we're actually going to explore the challenges, the progress, the responsibilities of modern education through the voices of learners and teachers. So you are known for writing articles about education and, if I can say, a bit of a whistleblower. Well, in our country, I don't even know whether that makes a difference. So when you are thinking of the topic we have today, what comes to mind? Is it a good topic, or it's something from the past? The youth today don't even know what is June 16th, or what is the significance of it?
Look, the relevance of June 16th, it's 5 decades. Next week will be 5 decades since that uprising in Soweto, in Orlando. And the significance of that is probably why education changed the way it did during the apartheid era. It's both a commemoration and a celebration, in my opinion, because there were, generations have passed, and those children who were part of that protest and rebellion in 1976 are in the 6th and 7th decades of their lives. And the young generation, the so-called newborns and stuff like that, they probably wouldn't have experienced protest in that form because apartheid is over now. And it becomes ever more significant when we recognize those that made a difference so that we could live better. We could live with freedom. We could live with democracy. And that is the reason why I think June 16, 2026 becomes all the more important to both commemorate and celebrate the event.
Do you know, our topic this evening, listeners, the children of apartheid education and their fight for equality. If you just joined us, our guest in studio is Narend Ganesh. He is described as a social and political activist, community leader, political analyst, and political figure involved in public discourse and community development. He is associated with engaging issues affecting society, including governance, leadership, and community upliftment. Through political analysis and activism, he contributes to discussions on social justice, public accountability, and that's what we're focusing, and community concerns. So as a community leader, his focus is often understood to be on representing local interests, participating in civic matters, and encouraging public awareness on social and political issues affecting everyday citizens. So in a broader political space, you are recognized for your involvement and dialogue around leadership, policies, and social development, if you can say it. Yeah. So you have a good knowledge of how the last, would you say, 35 years have evolved?
Yeah, I do. With the advent of 1994, 27th April, when there was a whole paradigm shift in governance in terms of our democratic order, we had the introduction of the outcomes-based educational system. In fact, I had quite a heated debate with the late Kader Asmal, who was the then Minister of Education, on the outcomes-based education system. And he was very adamant that it was going to work, but sadly it didn't. And then we go on to the CAPS, the Curriculum and Assessment Policy Statement. Now, I can understand the genesis of our educational system. We had to keep up with the Joneses, as it were, because the world was running at a very fast pace with the advent of technology, with the internet. Things have changed dramatically and radically, and that has impacted severely on how the outlook and the perspective of education is seen. So all these aspects that were introduced initially, and one of the things that I think I need to make mention of is the outcome-based educational system. They foisted it down immediately without proper consultation. Teachers were just sent for crash courses, as it were, to get involved in the system, and to introduce it to an integrated educational system that just came about was the disaster. And we probably have a lost generation, because they talk of 1976 being a lost generation. We probably created a few lost generations down the line, post-democracy. So that's where we basically stand with these issues.
That's like almost, almost 25, 30 years ago when we had outcome-based education. And then after that, it was RNCS, the revised curriculum. And then there was another one, which was also RNCS, but more revised. And then CAPS are probably like the last maybe 14 years or so. So there's been lots of changes. If you're teaching for very long, you can actually see the changes. And the best part of it, or the sad part of it, is we want to keep up, as you say, with the Joneses or international education on a different level, or we lie to ourselves. We don't realize it. And a lot of colleagues and listeners who are involved in education will realize we are going more backwards instead of moving forwards. When it comes to literacy, we fail. We really, really low. When it comes to numeracy, when it comes to science, we are no more. We actually We're actually like one of the last countries. But you'd expect that since so much has been invested, billions of rands in education, we should be able to read and write.
Absolutely. I think there's something else I need to clear up, which is important. We talk about this 30% threshold as a minimum subject requirement during and I think this was during the 2008 curriculum transition. Now, we use that as a ridicule. They are 30%ers or something like that. I think what people need to understand is that it is a minimum mark for passing a single subject, and not the total aggregate needed to pass. And the misconception is that you cannot pass matric by achieving a 30% across the board. It doesn't work that way.
But amazingly, that's the culture of our children. It's you're just working for that 30% or that 40%. And the way the education system now is in schools in South Africa, no child should be left behind. A child is only allowed to fail once in a 3-year phase. So if you're looking at grade 1, 2, and 3, if they fail grade 1, they can't fail grade 2 or 3. And interventions needs to be done. because it costs the government money. Parents fight that my child needs to be kept behind because they can't read, they can't write. But as educators, especially in the government sector, we try to explain to the parent, we can't. District circuit managers and district directors want 100% pass rate in primary schools. But when that child goes to high school, that's when, as they say, meet your Moses, they do really, really bad because they've been pushed up right through. And then I think when it comes to grade 10. And currently the situation, let's focus on KZN. A lot of high school educators are complaining how come the grade 8 learners, first time into high schools, are failing and performing so bad. You can't blame the primary school teachers because you feel that this child needs to be kept behind. But they say, no, you do intervention every single way. Even if you have to do an assessment orally for the child to pass, you need to do that. So as we say, there's no win situation for the educator, someone who's passionate in teaching. Yeah. So it's quite frustrating.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, are we equipping the children for life further ahead? I'm not sure if we are, because at the end of the day, like you just said, excuse me, when you come into high school and you are failing, why? Now, the 30% across the board story, I just want to clear that up. We need to understand that it's not enough to get a national certificate for say university.
Yeah.
And parents are believing that if a child gets 30% plus, they are passing, and it's not the case. It's a sad indictment of our times. But what I'm concerned about, which you've just raised now, is that this transition from the primary school to the high school, it's a different level of education. Of course, in any field of endeavor, you get the good, the bad, and the ugly. I cannot point a finger at educators because I can understand the stress, anxiety, and frustrations of educators because they are not being resourced by the department. I've had occasion to interact with the former Minister of Education, Angie Motseka, and I was not pleased with her. I'm very critical of her running of the education department because, in my opinion, she was just there to announce results.
Isn't she now the MEC for Human Settlement? No,
I think she's the Minister of Defence.
Prior to that, it was, I think, Human Settlement or Travel and Tourism. I know she contacted me for something, but then, as you know, they reshuffle cabinets always.
Yeah, I mean, our cabinet will put most of the kitchen to shame the way they reshuffled. But be that as it may. And now Minister Gwarube, I would hope, I mean, they need to go and sit in a class. We've got classrooms, teachers are sitting with 50, 60 children. You cannot teach effective education when you've got loaded classrooms like that. There are so many factors, multifactorial, that impacts on the outcome of quality education. Results are not so important until you get to a point where that result can manifest itself into developing the child into a better citizen, in giving them opportunity. Look, of course, opportunities abound these days, unlike 1976. But is the child equipped to grasp that opportunity and make a success of themselves? And if you look at the status of our schools, the discipline, it's a whole plethora of problems that we encounter. And that impacts negatively on proper and positive development of children.
Exactly, 100%. You know, would you say do learners today fully understand the sacrifices made for education, for the education system they now have access to? Do they know, what it took for them, whether it's a colored child, a black child, an Indian child, someone who's not white descent, what it took for them to just be in that school?
Look, I think, we've gone through an educational system back in the day that was governed by the Apartheid regime. I call the two eras now the hi-fi world era and the Wi-Fi world. One without technology, one with technology, and how it has changed. I mean, if we look as much as recently about AI, how that has impacted on learning itself. Children are not learning anymore.
Yeah.
All they are doing is learning the art of using AI and chat GPT and all these things. I'm old school. I will write out an article. I will not go and I don't even know how to use it at the moment. But be that as it may, it impacts negatively because it gives a sense of false positive to a child and to the parent that they are learning something. But they learn it for that moment and it's forgotten. I can still remember, my physics from matric, which is such an important thing because those days we learned to remember and to use going to university was such a pleasure. I'm a science graduate, so it was very important that I keep that learning because you use it in everyday life. Kids of today want to learn, use it for the time being and forget it.
I like what you're saying, and on my Youth Frequency show, we talk about this all the time. We blame social media because if you think about it, everyone wants to be a content creator. Like for you and I and many others, if we go onto social media, as they say, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, you have people showing you the food they're eating, the way they're living. We don't even know their lifestyles, and they're making money out of this. Now, sometimes one would say, where are the academics? Where are those who have skills or expertise in stuff where you can move progressively, as a human being? Because at the end of the day, when a child goes to school, the main thing is when they leave school, they must be able to be responsible, accountable, and earn a living and sustain themselves. But now the trend, and one of my guests, Brother Ashraf Murad, he's former teacher, counselor, he's a life coach. He said something that made us think, we need to get with the times. And he's someone like probably in his late 50s. We need to get with the times. We need to also embrace chat, GP, AI, and don't complain. And so, as you say, educators are constantly upgrading themselves.
Yeah. Look, we're on a point of no return in terms of technology. You cannot go back anymore.
Yeah,
I mean,
true.
it's only looking up ahead, and the development is even greater as the years go by. That's the reality. But the question is, at the formative level of educating a child. Now, a child, like I always pointed out, that education is not always academic. It's a holistic approach because you develop the child as a human being, as a academic, and look, technical schools are important. We always look at university as being the be-all and the end-all. It's not. Society or the world is built on carpenters and plumbers who are very integral to humanity.
And the high earners too.
Yes, of course. But and that's been the problem because we live in the brass rings of life. Better car, better phone, better house, better clothes, Louis Vuitton bags. Everything has become material to the point that the rat race has increased its pace. Now, what that does is it impacts on those who are lacking. So what happens? It adds to criminality. The child that does not make it and he's seeing his friends do it. I'm not saying this is a generalization, but it has led to that kind of thing. And we must be very wary of that. But let me just get to something that I feel is a very important aspect. The ill discipline of learners in school has reached an alarming stage because of the measures or the lack of them that has been taken by schools. The change of corporal punishment. Now, no one is asking for boom bang, thank you ma'am kind of story in terms of attacking children who are ill-disciplined. But that also is another multifactorial thing in terms of it's got to be approached from home and it's got to be approached at school. These days, both parents work. Sometimes they come at 6 o'clock. The child is left to their own, the children are left to their own devices.
Yeah.
So it's such a difficult situation, the socioeconomic aspect impacting on discipline, which impacts on the academia as well, So if there was a solution, a one-off solution, we would have postulated it, but there isn't, each one to its own. But collectively, we need to look at society as a whole. How does these little things impact And it goes back to the fact that different schools, why do some schools perform better than others? Why is discipline at some schools better than others? Obviously, it's the approach of the education, the management of the school and stuff. Further to that, we have the unionization of educators, which in my opinion is a serious problem because it has changed the face of how teachers look at themselves, how they look at their colleagues. I've had a lot of teachers approach me in terms of this aspect of promotion.
Oh,
you know,
so subject.
no, but it impacts on the education of the child.
100%.
And you know, previously there was a system of approaching promotions. Now you can buy a post, which is such. I mean, I can tell you something without fail, or without fear or favor. I've known of someone who's told me openly they paid for their post. Now, what do? Do you go out and advertise that, or because it's so rampant these days? It's not what you know; it's who you know.
Do you know, I had Brother V. Gani, the
Yes.
chairperson for the South African Parents Association, and he said something which is so relevant if you're looking at the long-term goal. We accept people who pay,
Yes.
governing body or DOE or unions, wherever, for that post. That is why the schools are failing. If a principal paid for his post, these are our views and opinions. We're not saying all principals did it, but if you're lacking those skills of leadership, how can you govern? How can you rule? How can you deal with human resources? You just walked in. You never earn your stripes. But right now, while you were chatting, a message came on the phone. The basic Minister of Education is under 36 years old.
Yeah. So she hasn't seen hasn't experienced the era of 1976. Obviously, that was a political appointment due to the GNU and stuff like that. But also, there's a lot of erosion of the power of principles, where learners have become defiant, disrespectful, and vandalistic. So much so that educators have thrown in the towel and reached the end of their tether, and they say, "Why should we break our heads when department does not help us?" And I hear of the frustrations of countless educators. And it's sad because what it does is it erodes that confidence that we have in our educational system. We blame the teachers. Who do you blame? The principal, the teachers? Then we are impacted by the governing bodies of schools. There are some governing bodies who are on the mark. They are interested in the welfare of the school, the development of the child. There are some who give a damn. I know of a teacher, this is anecdotal, who was an acting principal and for about 2 years. And when the post came up, he went for the interviews. And who was interviewing him? The security guard that opens the gate in the morning. Now, my question is this. A lot of them are not equipped to understand the dynamics of the academic aspect, the administration, the management of schools and stuff. And once again, I'm not making a generalization. There are specific, and each is individual.
Yeah.
But this is the kind of ethos that is developing, and it is impacting on the mindsets of a lot of educators who are getting frustrated.
Do you know, when you look at the bigger picture, we talk about government always being corrupt with tenders and appointments of cadres and, all of that. It filters down to education. 100% it filters down to education. And when you look at it, we have people who are holding leadership positions but who do not have the skills, the expertise to be a leader. But again, what do? We, as Vigani said, conscientize, constantly make people aware.
Yeah. Look, teaching is a noble profession.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a stage where amongst the 3 top professions was medicine, law, and teaching.
Teaching, doctor, lawyer.
Yes.
Especially if you belong to the Indian community. You had to become a teacher, doctor, lawyer.
Yes.
Do you know
And
something? I actually did law.
Is that?
And branched off into teaching.
Wow.
And how did I branch off into teaching? OBE started.
Right.
Teachers in a particular school were going for workshops and training, and my sister was teaching at that school, elder than me. And university, you have those long holidays.
Yes.
So I went to assist. And the following year, they offered me a job. because normally back in the day you did a BA degree and then you did an LLB to law. So I have the BA degree with languages in it, and I was going to do my LLB. So look where faith brought me into education.
Well, that's not a bad thing, because you probably influence more lives than you would have probably in the legal profession, because in the legal profession, as much as it's also a noble profession, but it has its bad days more than it has its good days, especially in the world today. And what worries me about our education system coming from 1976, I don't think we can really compare the dedication of teachers then to the dedication of teachers now. The systems were different, albeit in the apartheid era. My dad...
House of Delegates.
Yes, House of Delegates, House of Representatives, and obviously the House of Assembly at the time.
Yeah.
My dad was a school teacher. He started in 1960. He showed me his first salary advice, which was 178 Rand.
Wow.
And he went up the ranks. He was a lecturer at the Springfield Training College as well in English. And eventually he reached the top or pinnacle of his profession, being he matriculated at Sastry College. And as luck would have it, he was appointed as the first principal back there when it reopened. It's a little accolade that he always likes to remind me about. But he was describing how the world has changed. He would not have survived in this era of education. They came from a very strict era where education was paramount, where the discipline of the child was as integral to the success of the system itself. And we may want to point a finger at so-called Christian national education of the apartheid era. But a lot of prominent, contributory and productive citizens, especially in the Indian community, have been produced from that era. I mean, one classic example is Professor Jerry Kovadia, who has reached the pinnacle of his profession, amongst many, many, many others. But what I'm saying is that if we look at 1976, what those children stood up for, we are the heirs and the beneficiaries of their sacrifice. Some of them, the ultimate sacrifice of giving up their lives. Hector Peterson, that iconic picture of him being carried, after being shot. But they have laid their legacy so that we can grow and develop. And we can only be thankful, and our gratitude and appreciation must lie with those children.
The learners of today don't realize how difficult it was back in the day. Because when they talk about apartheid, the only thing that comes up, racism, this race hates that race and blah, blah, blah. But they do not talk about the struggles. You could not go to a certain area. You could not go to that school. You could not do so many things. And they don't realize the privilege, because before, if you lived in a colored community, you went to that colored school. If you lived in an Indian community, you went to an Indian school. But now you have a choice of where you want to go. And a lot is taken for granted by our youth.
Yes.
And a lot of educators and political analysts who are involved in education, they say the current youth did not live during apartheid or racism. But why do they constantly harp about that? And everything wants to be a protest.
Look, like I mentioned earlier, they will not understand the lived experience of the apartheid era.
Yeah.
We won't understand the lived experience of Mr. Nelson Mandela, because they were in the forefront of the struggle in a clandestine way. And they succeeded, and they brought this country to its knees to bring it to, like the phoenix, to rise up again. The children of today need to understand that sacrifices were made in their name without naming them. And it is because of them that we carry the flame of struggle. And education, my dad made it clear, you can have anything, but no one will take the one weapon away, and that is education. And I'm lucky. I had the opportunity of going to 3 different universities at the time, a so-called black university, a so-called Indian university, and a so-called colored university. And we were at the University of Western Cape at a time when the country was burning and fighting, and many of our leaders come from there. Trevor Manuel, our first Justice Minister, Dalla Omar. We used to hide in his house because we were part of the struggle, the United Democratic Front at the time. But it has taught us that those things that we fought for sadly, it has manifested itself in a way that I'm not too happy about.
Yeah.
If we are not awarding people positions or promotions on merit, we are degrading the system. We are getting back to the corruption. If you use race as a means of making equitable the inequalities of the past, at what point do we stop? 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, 100 years? Do we continue transformation until we get an all-black educational system? I don't think that's possible, because we are a country of people, one nation, one people. This idea of transformation is eroding society on its own.
Do you know, since you mentioned that, a message came through. What about removing history? So you heard about the old textbooks. They want to remove the history. The land. we don't like the colonials, but we have been colonized, and that's part of history. That makes the dynamics of our country. How can we remove that chunk? That's a whole nother topic on its own. I think there were some petitions going around, if you're aware, that you do not want it, why you do not want it. And I think you have to submit it to the basic Minister of Education. So that's also something that makes you think, as you said, we cannot remove the past from us, because the past made us who we are now today.
Exactly.
In that way there.
No, I agree totally. Look, you got to know where you came from to know where you are going.
Yeah.
And the colonialists contributed to the country. If we had to balance the books, it was both positive and negative, more negative in my opinion, because you cannot deny anybody their human rights and feel any positivity there. But look at the infrastructure, for example. The South African government now sits in a building that was built by the colonialists. Parliament is a colonial building. But not to harp on that, we need to look at the world from a perspective where the lived experience teaches us. History is his story, and if you don't know his story, you're not going to know your story. 100 years from now, we are not going to be known in the world. We will be not even a blip on the radar. But we can leave legacies in which that is the idea of humanity, to pass on the baton of life to the next generation. And as we pass it on, we hope that they live a better life than which we lived. And we can only do it by teaching the good, by keeping the good, by getting progression infiltrated into all the lives of the generations we leave behind. And I mentioned earlier on the lost generations of 76. Indeed, there was a lost generation, because parents of that time, they sacrificed a lot to try and give their children a vestige of education, prevented by the apartheid regime. But they didn't just surrender. And I revert this back to the Indian community per se. One of our hallmarks is that no matter what, we placed education first and foremost, because if we lost everything else, education would have carried us through. And it has. Many of our children, if you take KwaZulu-Natal, for example, many of the children now have migrated overseas, Cape Town and Johannesburg and overseas, and they found their niche in the world. How successful life is can be measured by the cars you drive and the houses you have, but probably not.
You're paying the bank.
You're paying the bank. But as long as you've been given a fair chance at life. And if you're given a fair chance at life, grab it. And that's my message to the young children of today, that yes, you are influenced by so many different things, especially through social media. But at the end of the day, it's the values that you have, the morals that you carry. And if you can sustain that in your life and pass it on to the generations that come, then the cycle of life will have meaning at some point.
And these are, if you look at the youth today, the children today, they are our future leaders. We tend to forget that. And right now, when you see what's happening in South Africa, the xenophobia is at its peak. They're normalizing it. It's normal. Everything. It's like normalized. You can go, do this, and it's fine. And when you look at the children, they say they're sponges. they aspire now, okay, I can do that. So it's a whole different mindset cropping up.
Yeah.
You know, and as you said, morals, values, empathy, everything is being thrown out. You know, when we're looking at the teacher, how has the role of teachers changed from apartheid era to today's democratic classroom?
Look, the pressure on teachers today is dramatically different from those days.
Yeah.
The stresses, the anxiety, the frustrations are impacted only because you require resources that are not being pumped in by the Department of Basic Education, you know. Changes to curriculum. Okay, that's necessary at certain times. You go with the flow at some point in time. But teachers today, in my opinion, are being more frustrated by bureaucracy than ever before.
100%.
You know, and until we get a minister who can go and sit in a class, do a in loco tour, go sit in, classes where you have many children, where you have classes that are dilapidated. I've been to a school just last Sunday, and I've seen the condition of that school, and I was utterly shocked. You know, some schools can keep their schools in a very pristine condition, some can't. But be that as it may, the teacher of today has to contend with so many different things. One of the things I need to mention here as well, you know, parents are ready to march to schools on petty issues and even resort to legal action if their darlings have in any way been ill-disciplined and stuff like that, believing that they have a right. This idea of rights, we need to impart to the child that rights come with responsibility. You can have the right as a child, but we look up to teachers to guide us. Of course there are miscreant teachers. Of course, in every profession you have the miscreant. But generally, teachers are there for a very, very valuable purpose. Yeah. It is to take us to the next level of life, you know, to cross a Rubicon, if I may. But I also must ensure that I do not forget telling the parent, whilst you want to help your child, do not give them this inalienable right to say, I can do as I please. It doesn't work that way. I don't know, you as an educator in the school might have experienced it, but I get a lot of complaints from parents and from teachers and principals and management staff who say, what do we do? How do you tackle a parent who comes here and abuses us because we were wanting to discipline the child? New culture,
it boils down to that. You know, you can see the gap between the government sector and the private sector. It's not a fine line anymore. It's a big gap. And I know lots of colleagues, I mean, who have children who are in their 30s, been to government schools. But amazingly, no one will take their own child to their own school, a government teacher. And I'm saying this on air. Like my daughter asked me, why I'm not in your school? And then you look, what should I say? But then 80% of educators, children go to ex-Model C schools or private schools.
Look, I won't hold a gun to their head. Each parent wants to give their child the very best. And educators in government schools know the situation, the conditions, and it might sound hypocritical, but that's the reality we have to face. How much does private schools charge these days? How many people can afford such education? Whilst we got the pleasure and the privilege of government state education, we've got to harness it, encompass it in such a way and embrace it in such a way that we can maximize the output of for the child and for the educator and for the parent and ultimately for society.
We'll be taking a short ad break and we would continue with School Matters.
Radio Al-Ansar, 24/7, 365.
Every day, thousands go to bed hungry, but you can change that. With just 10 Rand, you can provide a loaf of bread. This bread is more than just a donation, it is a lifeline for so many families in need. Be part of the Al-Ansar Outreach Slice of Life drive today. Call Outreach on 031-208-1601 and make a difference, one loaf at a time.
Welcome to Simplex Radio. Visit our showroom for the full range of car audio. Our TV department carries top brands with quality LED panels, full HD to Ultra HD, and now the experience of Super Ultra HD. Visit our theater rooms and transform your home with brands like Onkyo, Integra, Denon, Boston Acoustics, Yamaha, and more for quality audio visual experience. Now available, full range of home appliances. A one-stop shopping experience. Call 031 306 4029 or Kenilworth Park, 202 Brickville Road, Overport. Simplex Radio, the name you can trust.
At this time of trial and worry, the blessings of charity are the ideal means to avoid calamity and despair. The Al-Imdad Foundation gives you the opportunity to sponsor a share in a borehole in South Africa for just 1,000 Rand and provide what the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, called the best form of charity. Donate online at alimdad.com or call 0861 786 243 for more information.
Looking for natural wellness solutions for the whole family? Visit the Al-Ansar Shop Health Department, your trusted destination for vitamins, supplements, herbal remedies, immune boosters, and health essentials. Whether you're looking to improve your well-being or maintain a healthy lifestyle, we've got you covered. Quality products, trusted brands, affordable prices. Visit the Al-Ansar Shop today. Al-Ansar Shop, caring for your health naturally.
Umrah this July school holidays with Shaw Mirage Travel. 40-night early bird special from the 1st to the 15th of July 2026 or 10-night super special from the 7th to the 18th of July 2026. Packages include return flights ex-Johannesburg on the world's #1 airline, Qatar Airways, Saudi visa, transfers, accommodation and guided ziyarats. Contact us for the super low prices. Limited seats are available. Call 031-208-4222. Shaw Mirage Travel, your trusted partner for a seamless Umrah journey.
Durban Halal Meats, the butcher with a twist. Whether you're firing up the braai or stocking up for your business, we've got you covered. From premium lamb, beef and chicken to custom cuts and bulk orders, all 100% halal certified by Sanha. Enjoy our convenient buy and braai service, fast delivery and easy online ordering at durbanhalalmeats.co.za. Visit us at 84 Felix Dlamini Road, Durban Halal Meats. Quality, affordability, trust, meat made better.
اللهم انصر إخواننا المستضعفين على أرض فلسطين. اللهم انصر إخواننا المستضعفين على أرض فلسطين. اللهم حرر المسجد الأقصى من اليهود الغاصبين. اللهم انصر إخواننا المرابطين على أرض فلسطين. اللهم شد أزرهم وسدد رميهم برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم الطف بإخواننا في كل مكان يذكر فيه اسمك يا أرحم الراحمين. استنصروك يا الله فانصرهم. اللهم ارحم الضعفاء والفقراء والمساكين والأيتام والنازحين والمشردين والأسرى يا أرحم الراحمين.
اللهم أنج المستضعفين من المسلمين في فلسطين. اللهم كن لهم عونا ونصيرا. اللهم كن لإخواننا المرابطين في المسجد الأقصى. اللهم كن لهم ولا تكن عليهم. اللهم فرج همهم، نفس كربهم، داوي جرحاهم، عاف مبتلاهم، اشف مرضاهم، ارحم موتاهم، تقبل شهداءهم.
This hadith is sponsored by Ashraful Aid, International Humanitarian Organization.
Ansar, 24/7, 365.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to School Matters. The topic we have today, we can talk so much. We are going back in time. What is the significance of June 16, 1976 Youth Day? And amazingly, if you're a parent right now, or if you're an educator, ask your children, ask the children in your class, and let's see how many of them even know what it is. A lot of them just say it's freedom for us, we're the youth, we can do what we want. But they don't even know the story, how it started, the struggle, what transpired. So that's what we are saying. Are our children a generation of, what word can I use? A generation of what? The current generation?
I'd say a losing generation if we don't contain them.
Exactly, a losing generation if we don't contain them. You're talking about discipline. How can teachers balance the discipline with understanding the social challenges learners face? So, example, a child is high, totally high, but it's the society where they come from. It's so hard to discipline. What do you do? That's the challenges educators face today, because back in the day, it would be suspension, expulsion. It would be like something quite big, a crime.
Look, I keep on using on this multifaceted aspect of impacting on life. Teachers are faced with this aspect of having big classrooms, loaded classrooms of children. It's very difficult to teach, right? Point number one. The socio-economic aspect of children's lives, where they come from. I mean, quite a few schools have many child-headed households, which impacts on aspects of the ethos of the school. But social media has impacted the availability of drugs, which is a serious problem. Look at discipline as well. I was appalled to see videos of schoolgirls fighting and videos made of that. I mean, in our days, okay, we didn't have social media, but look at the levels they have reached. These girls are fighting, others are egging them on to actually cause harm and pain. Now, this destructive attitude of children is harnessed by peer pressure. And the more peer pressure you have, the easier it is to succumb. Children are killing themselves.
Suicide.
I heard of one 12-year-old child who didn't know what life was about, but he knew how to kill himself. And that's such a tragic incident,
Exactly.
And it's not isolated. It's happening regularly.
Would you say, has South Africa truly achieved the educational freedom that the 1976 generation fought for? Have we achieved it?
No. We have achieved freedom in the democratic sense, in the legislative sense, but we are still manacled and fettered by issues that are it's going to take generations to clear. And until we do that, we will always be on the back foot for progress with the education field.
And when you think about it, there's so many support structures, counseling, life coaches, motivational speakers. Then never exist. There were very few. One would say problems will be fewer. But now it's an increase.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And I pity the teachers. I pity the children. We are producing matriculants these days with so many distinctions. If we had to do a comparison with yesteryear, has the child suddenly become so brilliant that they're producing it? No, lots of dynamics have changed, But we don't begrudge the children. They are very capable children who are producing. They're hardworking. But why are those who are given more opportunities? One of the things that frustrates me as well is teachers from high schools who teach their children and then run private classes teaching the very same children outside school at a fee. I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's right. But it's happening, and it's the reality.
Do since you touched on tuition, every 85% to 90% of children in high school, especially grade 10, 11 and 12, are going for either maths, physics, accounting, Afrikaans. It's like the norm. So my question is, even in the private sector, my question is, I'm an educator, are we not delivering, or what is it that you have to go for extra lessons? That doesn't make sense sometimes. This topic every couple years comes up. Why do children have to go for tuition? so much in today's time.
Yeah, look, I don't think it's because the child is lacking. Perhaps there's not enough concentration within the confines of a school day that should be bringing out the best in the child. And then there are people who capitalize on that aspect, and it's a wow thing suddenly to go for tuition. It's also a distraction to go do wrong for children. There's so many possibilities. And
so, last question or last point. What more needs to be done today to ensure equal and quality education for every child in South Africa, regardless of race, religion, culture? Just for every child in South Africa, what needs to be done?
I think government has to redefine its goals and its approach to education. It needs to inculcate this idea that education might be important, but it is critical at the end of the day to use it as a tool, as a stepping stone, not as a stumbling block. And I just want to leave this thought with the listeners, especially parents and the children who are listening, if they are. There's a quote that I always carry in my heart that has attracted me to it. It's from a novel called For Whom the Bell Tolls by Ernest Hemingway. It goes something like this. Today is only one day in all the days that will ever be. But what will happen in all the other days that ever come can depend on what you do today. So if you take the bull by the horns today, you will reap the benefits in days to come.
Well, it's the seeds you plant today. So as we close today's School Matters discussion, we extend our sincere appreciation to our guest, Mr. Narend Ganesh, for sharing his time and valuable insights, taking us down memory lane on this important topic of education, leadership, and the legacy of June 16, 1976. The education in South Africa. The courage of those learners continues to inspire us today. However, their sacrifices also challenges us to reflect honestly on our presence, whether we as learners, teachers, parents, and leaders are doing enough. That's what he touched on, to protect and strengthen the education system that was fought for. True honor of the legacy lies not only in remembrance but in action, in how we teach, learn, support one another, and build a better future for every child in South Africa and around the world. Thank you for joining us on School Matters. Until next time, let us continue to value education, uphold respect, and work together to ensure that every child's right to learn is protected. From me, Sumaya, Assalamu alaikum.